All right, perfect. That's exactly what we need. More NYPD staff wasting their time protecting the president's assets. Like, that is wild. All right, so now we are going to move on to the matter of Mohammed Khalil, a man who has recently been arrested for his current actions and previous actions in regards to peaceful protests that was done within Columbia University, pro-Palestine demonstrations. So if you guys don't know, it's going to be explained here very shortly, but basically I want to give you the broad strokes really quickly. ICE was tasked, I would imagine, with detaining this man, Mohammed Khalil, for inciting pro-Palestine demonstrations. I think inciting isn't even the right word. The man was just protesting against the genocide that is going on between Israel and Palestine, and he was detained for reasons that I don't fully understand, which is why we're watching this video. But I want to make something very, very clear here. This man was detained under the impression that he had a working visa. Now, from my understanding, the fact that he had a working visa allowed ICE, for lack of a better word, to detain this man. Then it was discovered that, as a matter of fact, this guy had a green card within the United States of America, at which point, technically speaking, from my understanding, it was illegal at the time for this man to be detained, but then ICE and the Trump administration was like, fuck it, take him anyways. Allegedly, this is how it is going down, which is just abhorrent, the way that procedure has taken place. So what we're watching right now is what's the word I'm looking for? It's the following of that situation, what that situation is leading to, and what that is these Jewish protesters have went into Trump Towers. Notice that they're Jewish protesters that are protesting against the detainment, from what I understand, the alleged illegal detainment of Mohammed Khalil. So let's have a listen.
100 people after a crowd of protesters stormed the lobby of Trump Tower in New York City. They're demanding the release of Mahmoud Khalil, a Palestinian activist.
Sorry, I butchered the name. Mahmoud. I think it's Mahmoud.
It's a graduate student at NYU, or rather at Columbia University. He is at risk of being deported after he helped lead protests against the war in Gaza at the university last year. Homeland Security officials have accused Khalil of being a Hamas sympathizer. Let's go right now outside live at Trump Tower with CNN's Omar Jimenez, who is on the scene. Omar, give us the latest.
Yeah, so Boris, about 100 people were arrested as part of this protest that took place inside Trump Tower behind me on multiple levels, 2 different levels of that main sort of lobby entrance to the tower here, as we understand from police. And they were protesting on behalf.
I can't believe they arrested so many of these individuals so quickly. That, for some odd reason, also surprises me greatly.
Of Mahmoud Khalil. Jewish Voice for Peace was the group that was leading these particular protests that we saw. And when we first got to the scene, we saw dozens of protesters in zip ties being loaded onto buses where they were taken to central booking, as we understand, from New York police. But the chants that we heard from supporters that even gathered on the outside of some of these barriers that police put in place to keep crowds sort of at bay were things like fight Nazis, not students, and protesting on behalf again, of Khalil, who is still being held in ICE custody as those legal proceedings play out as well. We spoke to one of the organizers of Jewish Voice for Peace about why they wanted to come out here. And to them, they said they did not want the First Amendment entrenched on, which is what they believe Khalil was doing over the course of leading some of the protests we saw out of Columbia University. But also they wanted to show solidarity from the Jewish people as well. As those were the words that one of the organizers told me as we spoke to her. As some some of her protesters were being loaded onto these buses. There were no violent incidents in regards to the arrest themselves. Once they were taken into police custody, there did not seem to be any resistance. We did not hear of any resistance from police as well, but definitely a protest that grew.
I want to just, like, what these people did is incredibly brave. I would not have the guts to do something like this. This is very, like, it's just a very brave thing that they
to over 100, as we understand from both organizers and police, took place inside Trump Tower, organized in just a matter of hours and happened very quickly. As we understand from a law enforcement source, the protesters initially walked into the building with jackets on, and then when they undid their jackets, it revealed the red shirts that represented the Jewish Voice for Peace. But again, a protest that resulted in about 100 arrests. No serious charges expected outside of things like trespassing of that nature. But again, a moment where organizers tell us they wanted their voices to be heard in support of Mahmoud Khalil.
Omar Jimenez live for us in Manhattan. Thank you so much, Omar. Brianna?
Joining us
The
now.
fact that they went into Trump Towers, I didn't expect them to clean out Trump Towers so quickly, but like...
CNN senior national security analyst Juliet Kayyem. So Juliet, over 120 people entering Trump Tower, a law enforcement official telling CNN at the height of this. Tell us a little bit about that security setup there now that it's not Trump's official residence.
Yeah, so I'm surprised by this. I would have assumed that just given the public nature of Trump's commercial activities, it would be very difficult to have 100 people come. It was clearly a secretively planned protest, and they were arrested, as they should be. They trespassed, but they were also nonviolent, and this country has a long tradition of nonviolent protest. We'll see what happens in the courtroom or what's decided about them. I have no doubt that there will be increased surveillance and security around Trump's commercial entities. And this is the interesting thing about Trump, without getting into whether he should or shouldn't do it. And we saw this with Elon Musk with the Teslas. Because they've broken down the distinction between their public roles and their private commercialization, monetization roles, you are seeing these protests touch them in their commercial space. We saw this with Elon Musk and attacks on Tesla, as well as now this protest. Donald Trump cannot close down Trump Tower. It's a commercial space. It's a residential space. And so they are sort of dealing with, I think, in some ways, the consequences of that merger of monetization and policy and the First Amendment.
So these arrests, charging people with obstructing government administration for failing to move when the dispersal order came because the location is private property, and in certain cases resisting arrest. Tell us about those charges.
So those charges will, I mean, it's going to depend on each individual and what they did at the moment. So there's recordings, there's going to be police reports. Do they have past criminal activity? For some of these people, it may be a fine, community service, a guilty plea, and nothing much happens. I have no doubt Donald Trump will ratchet it up, at least publicly, in terms of his
I didn't even think about that, bro. That's again, like, these people are incredibly brave for doing something like that. I forgot that, like, with Donald Trump's, like, vindictive personality, he's probably going to use these individuals, which is, again, something that's freaking insane to like teach a lesson so that other people don't, like, do the same thing.
Of this kind of activity. The interesting thing about this is this was organized by a Jewish group. So the narrative of, sort of pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian equals pro-Hamas Arabs that is often used, and it was used in Mahmoud's case, Khalil's case, is harder to make against Jewish organizations. I have no doubt that that's why they did it, because there's great diversity within the Jewish American population about what's going on, divisions amongst them, and I think that's a very important part of this narrative of who it was organized by and why.
All right, Juliet Kayyem, thank you so much for taking us through that. And actually, what do you expect moving forward? As we heard, obviously the security folks who were there had called for additional units. Do you think that's probably something they're going to have in place temporarily for a while?
Yes, I think so. I think as this case in particular touches on, New York specifically, because it's Columbia, and a very animated community in New York amongst the sort of, I would say, the Israeli and constituencies. There's diversity within those constituencies, as I was saying, is going to get played out in New York, and that's where a number of Trump's properties are. And this is a difficult issue for the NYPD because of the commercial demands of Trump Towers. He needs them to be open. You can't close them. I mean, those are, as you know, those are retail spaces on the top, on a variety of floors. There are people come in and out.
Why is this girl glazing f***ing Trump so hard?
And we've never dealt with this before because we've never had a president who had commercial activities consistent with or parallel with his political position, President of the United States, or in Elon Musk's case, the selling of Teslas. That merger is a challenge for public safety because people.
This girl's like tied. Her tongue is tied. She can't say anything without pissing off. Like, it's just unfortunate because you've created a tense situation where if you say the reality of what you're seeing in front of you, you run the risk of getting hit in the crosshairs of these. Of course, the president of the United States shouldn't have such deep commercial ties within. It's just
you can't close it down.
The response time by the NYPD, the fact that I bet you as soon as Trump heard about this, he dropped everything that he was doing, made sure that the police got there immediately to take out the Jewish protesters. It's just so telling. But I don't know, unless I'm blind. Maybe I
need to protect people within the towers and protect the rights of those who want to go into these places or buy a Tesla or whatever else. And I think we're not quite built for that.
Buy a Tesla, bro. You can do that online. You don't even have to go into the freaking.
I think there'll be more aggressive security by the NYPD around Trump properties. But just to take a step back.
All right, perfect. That's exactly what we need. More NYPD staff wasting their time protecting the president's assets. That is wild.
There's a long tradition of protests. There's a long tradition of arrest and trespass around that. It sounds like that's what happened. We're not hearing about violence. We're not hearing about terrorism. This is not, burning cars or looting or anything. This is a First Amendment activity that was a trespass. There should be a punishment that will be determined on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, but what about the man who we unironically elected as president of the United States, who has 34 fucking convictions, has done numerous illegal real estate fraud dealings? What about that man, huh? Okay, you know what? That's fine.
This is a This is not, burning cars or looting or anything. This is a First Amendment activity that was a trespass. There should be a punishment.
Okay, so then put a punishment on the president as well, if that's really
that
what you're saying. It's only fair
basis, but I don't think that this is not
voter fraud is a punishment. Inciting a fucking insurrection, I guess, is that not a punishment? Because that's infinitely worse than these people peacefully. I don't get it.
Things where it's like domestic terrorism or anything like that.
That's insane.
I highly
this girl is
that Donald Trump
just. This girl, I can't even fucking blame her, but she's just choosing her words so carefully.
Wants to
out of fear, likely, because I can't imagine why else she would
increase the focus around this arrest for reasons that have almost nothing to do with anti-Semitism or even immigration at this stage.
Yeah, all right, there you have it. So I don't know what you guys took away from it. Maybe, I took away something different, but apparently don't touch Donald Trump's toys, otherwise he'll get the police after you and make sure that you're dealt with and make sure that you're punished and make sure that the punishment is shown so that, you know, it doesn't instill any other copycats. Good shit. Well done, America.